Hopefully you guys had a great weekend. It's your Monday edition.
That's right. How was your weekend? I want to know.
It was actually really good. I've been
Staying at home?
Staying at home with
There
a
we
couple
go.
of friends over. You know, the weather's not been fantastic over the past couple of weeks.
Capping it at 5 packs.
5 packs only.
Very good.
Okay.
So today it's all about, we're going to be talking about the sporting growth in Singapore. How the youth of today, the future of our nation are being groomed, as you would say, in the sporting industry. And who do we have on to talk about that?
Well, we've got some incredible guests joining us today. One of them, a former sporting athlete from the Singapore Sports School. That's right. She was from the Pioneer batch. One of our hurdlers and sprinters, Dipna Prasad. She'll be joining us a little later in the show and bringing us through a workout, no less. But our first guest today, who also happens to have been in school with us at Temasek Polytechnic and a member of Parliament for Ang Mo Kio GRC, is none other than Mr. Darryl David himself. So let's bring him on.
Come on, join us in here.
Join us.
Hello there,
How
ladies.
are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I like that line.
Mr. D.
We were in school together.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. Although we still can't call you Mr. Darryl. Like it's always been Mr. D. Ever since year one in poly, it was always Mr. D.
Well, you know what? I'm really proud of you guys and how you guys have built such a great career for yourself in the industry, right? It's always happy. I mean, it's a happy feeling that we get as educators whenever we see our students having done well. So really, really proud of you guys.
Oh,
So how are you? I mean, how was circuit breaker and phase one, and now that we've gone into phase two, how's that been for you? What have you been up to?
Well, I think circuit breaker was, for me, the biggest impact it had on my life was I had to spend a lot of time with my children, because due to the nature of the work that I do and all the community work I'm involved in, I don't really spend that much time with the kids, but I did. And to be honest, it was challenging, to say the least.
Like every parent's point is it was great to spend time with them, but...
Well, the children are 12 and 9, so obviously they are at that stage whereby they're wonderful to be with, but they also have their own personalities and their own identities. So I think we all, my wife, myself, and my 2 children, had to learn the first couple of weeks how to adjust to one another. But then after that, it was really good. I mean, we got to do a lot of things together that we didn't get a chance to do. And, keeping to the sporting theme of the program, my kids are quite into sport. My daughter's a competitive swimmer. So I was trying to get exercising with them, and I realized that they're actually pretty fit. And this old guy had trouble keeping up.
Hey, you're pretty fit as well.
Oh, no. It gets hard. But, I think all in all, the time with family was something that I treasured and will always treasure.
And so when phase 2 kicked in, June 19th, what was the first thing you did?
I ran screaming from the house away from the kids. Bye-bye, children.
See ya.
No. Seriously, I think when phase 2 kicked in, obviously you don't want to run screaming from the house and get all crazy and go out there and have too much congregation of people. But I think in my role as an MP, in my role as a community leader, it's very important to be on the ground, see what's going on. So what I wanted to do was to make that effort to go out there to see how things were functioning in our community. So went to my hawker centers, I took a look at my CC, what was going on there, keeping the proper social distancing, mind you. But it was good to see that generally people were mindful of keeping their distance. But you could also see a sense of relief that people were able to go out, interact with each other, have a cup of coffee, then put the mask back on, of course, eat at the hawker center and then put the mask back on again.
Just see different people out of the household.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I think social interaction is so critical and crucial for us as human beings.
We sort
kind
of
of
a bit
took it-
weirded out by it. I mean, you see people and they're just like, oh, in the supermarket, I see you on that side. It's like giving you
It's almost like this invisible barrier. So being a member of parliament, obviously, that wasn't always your career. I mean, you taught us in school.
That's
and
right.
You were in showbiz, the media. How has that transition been for you, going from showbiz into a member of parliament?
Yeah, well, I think an important part in between that was me being an educator, because before I entered into the media industry, I'd always wanted to be in education. And that was one of the things that I always wanted to do. But, things came along while I was in university, and then I started my career in the media industry. But after a few years there, I went back to do graduate studies again, and then I joined Temasek Poly. I think it was in Temasek Poly where I really felt...
Where you met some of your favorite people.
Indeed, some of my best students.
Oh!
Yeah.
Namely, the batches from...
Never mind.
The famous Latimer sisters, of course, of course. No, but I think what struck me then was the fact that the Polytechnic allowed a pathway for students, for young people who learned differently, to still continue their education journey. Because, traditionally, we were always very much an exam-based academic system, right? You do well at your PSLE, you go to these schools. You do well at your O-level, you go to these top JCs and so on. But I'm very happy to say that the Polytechnic, and it's all the more so now, is seen as not so much as better, superior, less superior. It's more of a different mode of studying. I mean, you guys know this because it's just teaching young adults and teaching students like yourself in a different way. And when I saw that, that really got me inspired to want to work more with young people. And then that, I guess, naturally led to more involvement in the community, more involvement in grassroots work. And that led to my role now as an MP. So it was really transitional from being the media to being an educator to becoming a member of parliament.
But you're always still reaching out to that youth level as well, especially like in the sporting scene at this point as well. Mm-hmm.
I think so. I think it's important to try to connect with the youth, with young families, with young adults, because they are the future of the country. Now, I can't claim to be as savvy as the two of you here are with certain devices or certain platforms. But I think it's not so much about the hardware, but about the hardware and about the ability. No, I mean...
we love you too.
This I know. Am I doing it correctly?
Yes,
okay,
yes.
Okay. So when I say that, what I mean is that if you have a heart for working with young people, young adults, guiding them, mentoring them, leading them in their journey, then that will come across. And whether you are 35, 45, or even 65, it's about being able to connect with a certain demographic, in this case, youth/young adults, and being able to work with them and guide them along. Because, the term youth really spans anyone who's, say, in a tertiary institute, to even someone who is in their late 20s who could already be a parent themselves. You're still considered a young adult, right? And the National Youth Council will look at 35 kind of as that cutoff point.
Oh, thank goodness.
So you're both...
Am I still involved?
Yes.
You are just about a youth, Kelly.
Yes,
just about.
You're
like 15 or 16 still.
I know.
Like
Yeah.
So.
Okay, all right, we'll calm down right there. We're going to go for a short break, but when we come back, we've got a youth who is also a young parent who'll be joining us, product of the Singapore Sports School Pioneer Batch. It's Dipna and Prasad joining us just after the break. Don't go away. This is Kickback with Kelly and Barbara. to Kickback with Kelly and Barbara. Barbara's popped off because I've replaced her for someone much taller and much more athletic. Shh, don't tell her I said that. Former national hurdler and sprinter Dipna and Prasad, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining the conversation with Mr. Darryl David here, who's still decided to stick around. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for
appreciate
having me around.
Oh, it's always nice.
And it's a pleasure to meet Dipna. It's always a great honor to meet someone who's represented the country and run
More
under the flag.
importantly, fellow Chindian.
Fellow Chindian.
Fellow Chindian, represent.
We're all
Indeed,
about
yeah.
diversity
There
here,
you go.
guys. There we go. Checking off all the boxes here today. So, Dipna, no longer competing.
No.
No, but
No.
you've taken up another role. You are now
Yes.
mother of a very, very handsome little boy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, chasing him around. So training still put to good use.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
It must be very, very practical to now be able to put all the things that you did as an athlete to now just looking after your child,
Yes.
which is just as exhausting, I'm
It-
sure.
Yeah, no, training is still more tough. Which is why I think the transition was not as rough as people described it to be. Yeah, it's been really quite a joy, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the Singapore Sports School. You were from the Pioneer batch, right?
Yes.
So we won't say how long ago that was.
I was going to mention anyway. So I enrolled 2004, first batch, Sec 1, and it was really pivotal in my whole athletic journey. I went into the sports school trials at primary 6. The head coach at the time, Rainer Paul, really saw my potential, and he picked me up. I got selected to go in, and I was actually the slowest in the batch. I couldn't get us individual events at national schools, but it took me one whole year of foundation work at sports school. And Sec 2, I was a gold medalist at national schools. And so it was really that their ability to talent spot and talent ID me, see my potential, and then really groom me. And so from there, then benefiting from the True Train system as well, I skipped 2 levels. I took my mother tongue, which is Mandarin, believe it or not.
太好了.
yes. And I could really focus on training, and that really helped me break through to the national team. I was in the age group teams. I was the youth record holder and the junior record holder for my event at the time, 100 hurdles. But it really took those 2 years for me to break through to hold a national open record. And I think if I went through the traditional route, I wouldn't have had such a long longevity in my sport. I was in track for 17 years.
That's quite long for track.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, usually you would take a track athlete. What's the usual lifespan?
Okay.
Usually exit by like your early 20s.
So worldwide, track is actually quite an old sport. We can have we have world champions coming back after pregnancy and things like that. They're winning at the world level at 30, even 30s. But in Singapore's context, we see the attrition rate really more about 18, 19. So unfortunately, it's a lot shorter lifespan in Singapore. Yeah.
But it is very important that we do harness the talent at a younger stage here in Singapore. Now, Mr. Darryl, you're a national youth council member, and you've been supporting the youth especially in the field of sports for quite some time now. So, what do you think the importance of starting sport young is?
Well, I think critical to that must be a mindset shift on the part of the parents. To see sport, first of all, as something complementing their child's overall holistic education, not something in competition with their child's academic development. It's true, we have a system here in Singapore that places a lot of burden on children and parents, and it is zero-sum game to a certain extent, because you have to juggle your schoolwork, you have to juggle your sporting activity. And I see that now, because my daughter, as I mentioned earlier, is a competitive swimmer. She's in primary 3, and I'll come to Dipna for some advice later on how to handle a young lady who is a competitive sports person. But I guess the point I'm making is that parents have to be able to see sport as something that fits into their child's life. And as they grow older, I think our system has provided options, as Dipna is one of the beneficiaries of a system whereby in a place like the sports school, I think you have a bit more breathing space to do your sport, your studies, and because you also stay on campus, is that right? And that helps a lot, say, taking off 1.5 hours of traveling time back and forth.
Yeah.
And that time can be so important to let the athlete rest or to do a bit of study or just to space out because it's pretty intense. So I think we have made progress in this area, but you need parents and even children to think about where does sport fit in with my overall plan. And sometimes the sacrifice also has to be that the sport you do may not necessarily lead directly to financial gain. So everyone knows, right? You do well in a sport, you go off, you win, say, an Olympic medal, and that's great. And you do have a certain amount of financial, I would say, reward. But you forget about the years of your own money you put in to get to that stage.
It's true, and it is an investment. I think especially depending on the sport that you take on, sport can actually be very expensive, from your equipment to the training and the coaches and your nutrition and all of that. But Dipna, as someone who has benefited from the sports school, but it's obviously changed a lot since you were there, how is the future looking for our budding young talents now compared to when you were there?
I think, as athletes, we always say it can always be better, there can always be more. But I think looking back, my husband was a national athlete as well. So in the early 2000s, when he was an up-and-coming talent, comparing to my time, I already benefited so much more. There was so much more support in terms of like Sport Singapore grants, with SWEC scholarship, with the final push, and now with NYSI that's come out, National Youth Sports Institute, they have opened up the doors to give other youth athletes a lot more access to sports science, which then equips them and empowers them as athletes and individuals, because then there's mental skills to help them cope with the stress. And it's really quite stressful to, like, let's say, skip school for half the year because you're overseas competing at training camps and competitions. So learning how to balance all of that and then equipping them with the technology and technical know-how of like how to be more efficient in your sport with biomechanics help, for example, I think it sort of gives us a higher platform to start off from. So it's quite exciting.
This took a whole very technical turn that I
I'm so sorry.
But I think it's true.
Sport science.
In fact, I was going to ask that question for you, Dipna, because you are a mother now yourself, and we talked about parents changing mindsets and wanting to support their children in their sporting journey. So what advice would you have, say, I guess for me and for other parents out there whose children are taking more than a casual interest in a particular sport, pretty good at it, they're going at it, training, like I told you, right, 5 times a week, 50, 60 laps in the pool every time.
This is really a very personal question of like...
So, but what then could parents and families do? Do you have any advice for us?
I think it's really just taking the time to try and understand what your child's going through. So supporting them, going down and supporting them at competitions, giving them some space as well, because sometimes they don't know how to express how they're feeling as well. So it's really just giving them a safe space to go, you know what, I'm here, whatever you're feeling, you can just sit with me, you can talk with me if you want to. Just giving them a safe space and just trying to understand, like, for example, when I was a junior athlete coming up, my mom would try to understand my event. So she would come down and I'll be really upset after my race, and she'd go like, oh, why? I'm like, oh, I didn't do well, I missed, I didn't get a PB, and I missed it by like, I was off by like 0.5 seconds. And then she was like, first start, what's a PB? And number 2, 0.5 is half a second, right? That's very short. I'm like, no, mom, but like, that's actually, it translates to this. And so over the years, now when I talk to her about my races, she go like, oh yeah, but you're 0.1 off. And I'm just like, wow, mom, like, look at how far we've gotten. So, and that really means a lot to me, because I, like, for her, sports is just like,
completely out of there.
Yeah, so just feeling understood, I think, and supported, yes.
I suppose. Now, sport this year has taken a huge hit. I mean, a lot of industries have taken a huge hit. But I think for a lot of our young athletes, with the Olympics gone this year, there's obviously a group of athletes who will not get a chance to compete. There's also at a school level, a group of athletes who are feeling that there wasn't really much motivation, especially if they're at the school level where this is their last chance to compete for the year before they graduate. What's the impact that COVID has had on our budding young talent?
Well, I think that certainly it has an impact on sports and how we view sports and activity, because there are different sports that require a lot more physical contact, but there are sports like, say, badminton, table tennis, and say, for example, tennis, that almost lend themselves quite naturally to life in a post-COVID world, because you're nowhere near your opponent. The only thing that you ever come into contact with, maybe the shuttlecock that both of you might touch, and you could wear gloves, right? So some sports actually are going to be pretty okay to continue. Other sports, like the team sports, where you have strong physical contact, are going to be tough. Someone like Dipna, who does individual running, for example, or track, that again is somewhere in between because you're kind of running in your own space. So I think different sports...
Depends how far you leave them behind.
Exactly. And she just looks in front. There's no one in front of her, right?
Exactly.
So everyone's behind her. So I think it will depend on the kind of activity you do, the kind of sports that you play. And then it also leads to the whole part, the aspect of spectators being involved. So I think it's not just about motivation for young athletes, is that what will sport be like moving forward in terms of spectator participation?
That's true. So then what can we do as a community? What do you think from an athlete's perspective, from a member of parliament's perspective, what can we do as a community to support sport?
I think really just follow your favorite athletes on social media, just connecting with them, interacting with them, because I think, you know, a large part of the time when we're overseas, we're really, as cliche as it sounds, we're really doing it for the country. We want to fly our flag high. Yeah. But, and it sometimes is a little bit lonely because you feel like it's just you on the track or you wherever you are, and you feel alone. But you interacting with us and speaking to us, you know, especially during the mundane day-to-day where the real hard work really goes on, makes us feel that we're like, hey, you know, Singapore has our back too. And that's really nice. So I think just cheering each other on, having that conversation, and then building that community together, I think that really makes us really feel like one team Singapore.
I think it's using different platforms to continue to promote our sports and our activities to our people. So I know the school sports games is such a huge thing, right? The whole school goes down, everybody supports, and it's such a wonderful, encouraging moment for a student athlete to have thousands of people cheering for you, cheering for your school, you're running for your school. Now, I don't know when we can ever expect to see that again, but certainly we can leverage on technology. We can have e-platforms. We can perhaps see how we can broadcast, webcast, live stream some of these activities that will still allow us to reach an audience, that will allow the athletes to also feel encouraged that of course, you don't just do this for the audience, you do this for the love of the sport, or for the love of the country, like Dipna said, or for the love of your school, to represent your school. But it certainly helps knowing that you have an audience out there. So if we can find alternate platforms to still showcase the achievement of our young athletes, that will certainly be a boost for them, I think.
And that's exactly what Get Active TV is here for. We are here to bring sports even closer to you, including our Sports SG TV as well. Bring you all the events when they start happening again. Mr. Darryl David, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Dipna,
Yes.
we're going to keep you around because we're going to get you to change into your workout gear.
Yes.
It's going to be workout time when we come back after the break. Stay with us here on Kickback with Kelly and Barbara.
Step right up, draw the next cut. You one of the brighter animals, so get along with everybody else. Is this ship
back to Kickback with Kelly and Barbara. I'm back. Dipna is still with us. She's
I
going to be
am.
leading us through 3 exercises for our little sweat session. What have we got?
We've got half squats, planks, and glute bridge.
So we're doing 40 seconds on, 20 seconds of a rest.
If you're doing this at home, make sure you join in the action. If you want to do it later on, you can just repeat it several times through to get a really good sweat. Dipna, are you ready?
Yes, let's go.
Okay, let's go. First one. We're going
Okay.
to take your lead.
We're gonna go half squats ready on 3, 1, 2, 3. You're gonna go down, make sure your bum goes back. And we've got a nice parallel ties to the ground. And if you find this too easy, you can do jumps like this. Just keep swapping over.
Wow.
Or,
You can do it. I'm going to...
You can hug a weight or hug your baby. This is what I hug my baby when I do this at home.
Yeah, you see,
Yeah.
that's the thing. When you have a kid, you've got an automatic weight.
Yes.
And it gets more and more challenging as they get bigger. And
Yeah.
I do
older.
love how in sync we are.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to
Love
admire
it.
that.
This is a good pace.
Okay, we've got 10 seconds left.
And you will definitely burn
And
off a sweat.
breathe. And 3, 2, 1, and we get to rest.
Okay, so what's the next one?
Okay, we're gonna do planks. Obviously front planks if we can. If it's a little bit too tough with your elbows, you can do a high plank, like a push-up position and hold. If it gets too easy, you can do shoulder taps, you can do side planks, you can do lots of variations if you want.
Ooh.
But let's keep it easy
Let's go with
just
the-
a front plank.
Front plank. Down on our
Yeah.
Elbows.
So again, if this is a little bit too challenging, we come up to push-up. If we want a little variation, you get bored, shoulder taps. I'm gonna go back down.
I was like, oh, we're all clearly feeling the Mondays today.
So you can also, I like rocking backwards and
Yes.
forwards on this one. You get a nice calf stretch while you're doing it, activation of the core as well. Whew.
Okay, we got 20 seconds left. Don't worry, guys. I'm keeping time.
Playing it cool. I'm playing it cool, but I'm just holding my breath, so no one can hear the loud breathing.
Always breathe. 5 seconds. We got this. I'm starting to feel the quiver. Ooh.
Oh,
And
hold
time.
strong. Yes.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Last
bridge is
one,
next,
glute
right?
bridge. Yeah. So I'll do little. Okay. So starting position.
Yep.
We've got a nice little 90 degree. We're gonna lie back down. Okay. Okay. And
I'm just going to do this at an angle.
yep. And then push up with, so the contact points are your shoulders and your heels. Are we supposed to push up now?
Ready?
Yeah.
And
Go.
let's go.
So you've got a nice straight line from your shoulders all the way up to your knees. If this is getting a bit too easy for you, you can do a march. So you can lift up one leg and then bring that bow down and then switch up.
And what should we do with our hands?
Oh,
Just want to
we can
kind
use
of
it
press
as
them
balance.
into the ground. Yeah.
Press them in balance. I always have awkward hands. Put them on your hips. You can use, you can hold a weight plate or your baby again, and above your chest. Lots of options again.
Always
for
want to
you.
make sure that you're just kind of squeezing those glutes up.
Yeah, and when you're if you're doing the knee march, you have to make sure that your hips are always leveled and you're not shifting around or wobbling too much as well.
Sometimes keeping your hands just on the hips.
Yeah.
Just kind of making sure that they're not rocking back and forth. All right, we got 5 seconds. Woohoo! In 3, 2, and 1. All right. Thank you
Nicely
so
done.
much for that.
That was a nice little sweat. Remember, if you're doing this one at home, you can repeat it 3 or 4 times through to get a good, like 15-minute workout. You'll really start working up a sweat. I definitely did whilst I was doing that one as well. We are wrapping things up here on Kickback with Kelly and Barbara. A fab show to come on Wednesday as well. If you are a circuit baker, maybe you want to tune in. We've got some advice coming your way from those who have had to transition from their careers. But we say thank you very much to Dipna for joining
you.
us.
Thank you for
We
having
will
me.
see you again on Wednesday. Bye-bye. Hello and welcome to Kickback with Kelly and Barbara.